but I want to talk about immigration with you guys, right? I'm going to talk about immigration every single show on the Pasta to Go show because I think it's so important. It is really just kind of, just taking its own. It's got its own like wheels now, right? I mean, it's its own thing now. It's just this whole, 21st century, this mindset of what immigration is, why it's going on. You talked about the Monroe Doctrine, Diane. Let's play the first video right now. I want you guys to take a look at this. This is on Fox News, and it's just Rick Scott really quickly talking about immigration and what the majority of people want,
I can't hear anything.
Today. I want a secure border. Our voters, you travel, I'll tell you around my state, the number one issues, Floridians want the border secure today. Today. They want the border secure today. Nothing else. Nothing else. They want the border secure.
Okay, so we're going to start with Alex. Alex, this has been said all over. If you put on Fox News or Newsmax, 90% of the conversation revolves around migration, immigration, the border, or the border. What do you think the cause of migration is to the southern border? Your opinion?
What do you mean by the cause?
The major cause. Why are so many people coming to the southern border?
Well, I think that there's like a multitude of causes, but you do have documents like migration and the 2030 agenda, and migrate. Like there was another white paper about like migration and replacing aging populations. Like a lot of these boomer conservatives, they do make a mistake of kind of blaming casting blame on immigrants for a lot of the problems that we're dealing with. And I disagree with that. That's wrong. But and most migrants that you meet are really good, kind people who just do want a better life. But that being said, this thing is being very obviously weaponized, right? Like my friend Anthony Rubin, his name is Muckraker News on Twitter. Are you familiar with him, Pasta?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, vaguely. Yeah.
Okay, so he made a documentary. Yeah. Okay, he made a documentary where he traveled basically from Quito, Ecuador, and went and did the whole pipe. He basically did the immigration path that migrants from all over the world are doing, right? And so, 10, 20 years ago, you had, the migration that occurred, it came from Mexico and maybe a couple of countries next to Mexico, right? Now you're having a series of NGOs like UNICEF, the Red Cross, the WHO, OIM, Doctors Without Borders. Like you have all types of, you have the Open Society Foundation. You have a lot of people with a lot of money that are transparently, funding and financing people from all over the world. And a lot of these people are military-aged men. And there's a huge difference between, going through coming here from Mexico because they're your neighboring country, or coming here from like El Salvador or something like that to escape gang violence, versus like being flown from China to Quito, Ecuador, going to Colombia, walking through the Darien Gap, being handed a rape kit by the Office of International Migration before walking through the gap, and then being kind of like low key encouraged to ride a freight train, and then having migration paths in the same vicinity as cartels, where cartels wind up having to coincidentally get bribed, and cartels are probably making a killing as a result of this. And then not only that, man, if we're in a climate crisis and and we have a lot of environmental problems, and environmental degradation is a thing. If you actually look at the camps through the Darien Gap where people are staying and camping out throughout their journey, it's filth. It's a San Francisco homeless encampment on steroids. So I think that what you're seeing, if you actually try to research and understand and watch independent news sources discuss the border crisis, it actually is a huge problem. It actually is a huge public safety problem. It's a huge environmental problem. We as taxpayers are funding this when we could be using that money to help pay people's student loans off and whatnot, or maybe maybe make it easier for people to buy homes at low interest rates. So I think that's the discussion. Like, these frameworks should be what we talk about when we discuss the migration problem versus just like blaming the immigrants and thinking like Trump is going to fix everything.
Well, Diane, before you jump in there, I just want to say one thing really quick.
It was a rant. I'm sorry. I went off,
No, it's okay. No, it's, that's why you're here. And we'll let Diane jump on this too as well, because there's a few things that I think you got right. A few things. I do think the majority of the migrants are coming. And I looked at this not too long ago. I should probably get some more data analysis as far as where the majority of the immigrants are coming from. And what I saw when I looked at July, when RFK released his video, Midnight at the Border, when he spent a couple days there. And I looked at the U.S. Customs Border and Securities webpage, and they said that 80-something% of the migrants that are still coming from Latin America. We now have close to 100 bases in Latin America. The Monroe Doctrine is still alive and well. When you talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, we talk about the Great Reset, we talk about resources, cobalt, nickel, lithium, still very prevalent and down there in Latin America, especially in countries like Peru, where there's so much lithium. And they just threw the last president in jail. And that president, once again, it was a CI-backed inside coup. I can't remember her name from the CIA, but she showed up shortly after they jailed Pedro Castillo. They still want these resources, and they want them for pennies on the dollar, and they want to make sure they can extract these resources. Same thing that's going on in Haiti right now in the mountains, where there's a lot of minerals over there that all these Western corporations are going in and extracting for pennies on the dollars because the country is so destabilized. So I think a lot of that has to do with what's going on. When you were talking about the hike, the trail that your friend he went and witnessed, the one thing he missed in that movie is he didn't show the U.S. bases that are all along that trail. They're very close to that trail. The U.S. bases there are not the Boy Scouts handing out cookies like Victoria Nuland was doing on the Maidan, right? It's more about keeping, once again, you have a situation like Manuel Zelaya, and a lot of those gangs you talked about are funded and backed by the United States. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I agree. Yeah,
you did mention that. But one of the things too I want to mention is that I think the West wants to make sure that these countries are destabilized. When you talk about the situation of Manuel Zelaya in Honduras, as soon as he joined ALBA, less than a week later, they backed the military there to bring him out of the country. If you ever go to Honduras and you go by the capital, Tegucigalpa, there's a base there with 1,500 American troops that are there, stationed there right now. And I think that's something that's missed along the lines. It's been a long time that this has been happening. I think the destabilization of this country really benefits the Western corporations, and that's something we have to talk about. And
with the cheap labor and stuff too, right?
Yeah. Why are you echoing? What's wrong with your sound?
Am I echoing?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, something happened with your sound that got a little wonky. Yeah, I mean, when people talk about the cartels exploiting these people, but I would say this much, that there is some exploitation by the cartels who work for the DEA and the CIA anyways, but the majority of the people who are exploiting these immigrants that are coming here are these Western corporations with the cheap labor. So I think that we sometimes forget about what's going on, but I'm very happy that you had mentioned we should blame the migrant himself, because unfortunately Trump has a xenophobic rhetoric where he kind of tries to relate all the immigrants coming into the Muriel boat ride of Cuba, when it's believed that Castro emptied out his prisons and his mental institutions and sent everybody to the United States. That's what he's trying to kind of equate what's going on today to, when the majority of these immigrants are coming over are great people. And that doesn't mean I'm saying that we should let them in endlessly, whatnot. I'm saying we should stop the causation of migration. I'm glad you said a lot of things, Alex, but I want to get Diane on this. I want opinions on what the causes of migration to the southern border, because you know what, Alex, Diane? It's never talked about in the mainstream media. That's what they're missing. They never really have a conversation where they're providing context. It's just, what do we do at the border when they get there? Go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, okay.
Let Diane.
Well, I agree. That's the biggest mistake. There's a couple things. One, I have a really, maybe this is really down the rabbit hole, but I happened to hear an interview with Fletcher Prouty. Do you know who that was? He was Mr. X, and if you saw the Kennedy JFK by Oliver Stone, but Secret Service intelligence, and he said a lot of very interesting things. One, he was there in Asia, in Japan, when the Japanese surrendered and there were billions of dollars worth of weapons there. And he said to someone, gee, this is going to be really expensive shipping this all back to the United States. And the person said, we're not bringing it back to the US. He goes, what are you going to do with it? Well, we're going to leave it in Korea and Indochina. For what? So the wars, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, were already planned in 1945. What is that? And then he described in Vietnam this process of moving 1 million people from the north into the south, uprooting them, giving them nothing, moving into the south, creating the social unrest and creating a kind of a civil war. And that's really been in my mind when you see the inflammatory way the news media is covering the migrant crisis and some of the events we've had here in New York. Most recently, a situation where a group of 6 or more migrants beat up 2 police officers. And I find the whole thing very peculiar. One, we have this no bail thing, so they were released the next day. But why does the media go to the jail and film the migrants giving everyone the middle finger? Like, what is the purpose of that except to make people so enraged that they want to kill someone? And then you hear these, oh, well, they're all getting, you know, $6,000 a week for this and that, and they're staying in 5-star hotels. Now, you know, I've been to the hotels. They have like 10 people in a room with a double bed. And if they can't fit in the hotel, they get the privilege of pooping out on the sidewalk. So it's not even, why are people being fed that incendiary propaganda? Because Americans are suffering. There's hyperinflation. And if they could, in my own opinion, there's a desire to push people over the edge. Because if you can get violence, if you can get bloodletting, it'll be very hard to put back in the bottle. So that's just one a part of the dynamic here.